The question is, why prayer? You're here because you desire to see God change in your school. But how could something like prayer, which seems so passive, change anything? Well, let's talk about it. First thing we need to remember is prayer equals change. In the book of James, chapter 5, it says prayer is powerful and effective. But when you hear the word prayer, it can mean a lot of different things. To some, it means ritual and routine, like mealtime or at bedtime. For others, it's a polite thing to do, or it's intimidating, or it's just a mystery. For others, it can cause you to ask the question, does prayer really change anything? Now, while there's sides to prayer, Claim Your Campus focuses on the idea that prayer equals change, meaning that prayer has power from God to make things different. In other words, when you pray for something to change in your school, it will change because God answers prayer. Now, in a few minutes, we'll walk you through how you can pray strategically for your school campus. But Claim Your Campus is about empowering students on two different levels. One, local, your school. And two, nationally, meaning the entire country. Now imagine how cool it would be to see God's power at work in your school. Prayer can transform your school because you are asking Him to do something and God answers prayers. But what if you decided to take on the biggest issue at your school and then ask God to change it? What would be the result? Now imagine multiplying what can happen at your school by 67,000. There are 67,000 middle schools and high schools in America. So this movement is not just having the potential to change your school, but the entire nation. So what if 1 million students decided to pray strategically for their campus? How would our nation change as a result? This is the vision of Claim Your Campus. Prayer equals change. When you talk about prayer in school, it can be very controversial. People start talking about whether it's legal, the separation of church and state, or whether prayer even belongs in schools. And in order for us to understand where we are today, we need to take a look at the history of where we've been. It was in the 1960s, before the Beatles and the hippies. It was in 1962 and 63 where the Supreme Court, the highest court in our country, issued a ruling that prayer was no longer allowed to be led by teachers or staff in public schools. Symbolically, many believed that this was when we formally kicked out God from schools. And soon after, there was many changes in the school environment. School violence increased. Suicide and depression also increased. And things like test scores plummeted. And there was this myth that you can't pray in school. The thing is, you have every right to pray in school. You can pray in school. You don't need permission to meet to pray before or after school or even during the lunch hour. The year was 1990, where a thing called See You at the Pole spread across the nation, where students gathered around their flagpole to pray for their campus. And it was the first time since 1963 there was this positive shift in youth culture around the issues that I just mentioned. And there was a link between the two. That link is prayer. And until now, this is your chance to unite with 1 million students across the nation to not only pray for your school, but every school in the nation, where you can think of all the issues that I don't even have to mention, but God can change all of that. Because remember, prayer equals change. Prayer also fulfills God's desire to use us to influence the world around us. But before I talk about what prayer is, let's talk about what prayer is not. Prayer is not magical. It doesn't plug us into a God that fulfills our personal wish list like Santa Claus. Prayer is not boring. We're having a conversation with the creator of the universe. How exciting is that? Prayer is not just a chat. Even though that is okay, but it can be more than that. It can be bold and filled with emotion and pray for what is just. Prayer is not just for church, where it can be the last resort, but we should be praying always as a first response. So let's talk about what prayer is. Prayer is powerful. It calls upon an all-powerful God to move in response to his children. He wants to give us what we ask because he loves us. And prayer is effective. It makes a difference. God listens and takes action when we are faithful to ask. Prayer is also specific. When we have specific requests, we get specific answers. And prayer is also challenging. It's not only just talking to God, but also God talking to us. And it causes us to realize what's happening around us and being more willing to do something about it. And finally, prayer unites us. It brings us together for one common goal. Claim Your Campus focuses on two types of prayer: protection and provision. Protection is exactly what it sounds like, asking God for protection over something. And we encourage you to pray for protection over your school. And some examples of protection is against violence, or maybe it would be against people who hurt each other through gossip, or just spiritual protection on your campus. The second type of prayer is provision. Provision is asking God specifically for things. And many times we don't see our answers to prayers because we aren't specific in asking for them. And in a few moments, we will be reading a story that Jesus told, and we'll see how he instructs us to pray. And some examples of specific prayer is seeing bullying decrease at your school, or if you're in high school, to see the dropout rate change, or maybe just focus on the drug use. But the power is in your hand to decide what you are going to ask God to do in your school. Prayer equals change. Claim Your Campus's mission is prayer every day on every middle school and high school campus in America. And your school is a part of this important mission for your generation. And this starts by establishing 5 prayer groups for each day of the week, Monday through Friday. And in each of these 5 groups, there should be somebody who steps up to lead this group. And in each of these groups, there should be at least 2 core students, 1 student missionary, and 1 adult sponsor. And the 4 of you are then responsible to meet and pray 1 time a week on the same day, same time, same place. And you're also responsible to invite as many people as possible to participate in your prayer group. And so you have 5 prayer groups with 4 people in each of them, which means you will have 10 core students, 5 student missionaries, and 5 adult sponsors, totaling 20 people. And so you just need 1 more person, and that 1 person is an adult campus sponsor. And the 21 people are then committed to stepping up for your school to see change for God. Now, these 21 people, they don't have to be perfect people. They don't have to be experts in praying. They just have to be willing to be stretched by God and be willing to sacrifice their reputation on behalf of God's reputation. What's neat about Claim Your Campus is that it's joining together with thousands of other students across the nation to pray for change. Now, this movement goes beyond the scope of your school. So we invite you to pray on 2 levels. 1, locally, which means your school and surrounding area, as well as nationally, which includes schools across the nation. And this nation can change because of your prayers. Now, Claim Your Campus also provides a national prayer focus for each day of the week that's included in your prayer calendar. This allows you to join with other students across the country to pray for the same thing. We also want to encourage you to choose 2 protection and 2 provisional type prayer requests that are specific for your school, and decide together how you want to see God protect your school, and as well as where you want to see God provide in a very specific way for your school. The next few moments, 3 important things are about to happen. You'll be asked point blank whether you want to be a part of this movement in your school and across the nation, and you'll have to decide. But realize, that this decision should not be taken lightly. Also, you'll be discussing prayer requests that are most needed in your school. Ask for God's leading in this, because whatever you decide, lives will be changed based on that decision. And lastly, is discussing when you want to launch your Claim Your Campus movement. But get ready, because prayer equals change.